We all know that Hollywood likes to play fast and loose with real-life stories, but sometimes their lack of interest in the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth is actually why we enjoy what we're seeing on that there big screen. Or small screen, I guess. What with the whole... You know what, never mind. Today we're talking movies that rewrote history in order to provide us with some quality entertainment. Of course, we have to start with Quentin Tarantino's most recent excursion into alt history, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you're somehow unaware, and big spoilers by the way, the big twist in this controversial flick is that the infamous Manson murders that claimed the lives of Sharon Tate and 4 others never actually occurred. In the film version, Sharon Tate's neighbor is Leonardo DiCaprio's fictitious has-been actor, Rick Dalton.
Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
Who, along with his stunt double and close friend Cliff Booth, has just returned from Italy, where he's been rejuvenating his career with spaghetti westerns and crime flicks. Oh, and he got himself a wife. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, because Rick makes a drunken stink about a bunch of hippies making a racket outside. The Manson goons wind up going after his house instead.
My idea is, we kill the people who taught us to kill.
And Cliff, high on acid, proceeds to absolutely decimate them in one of the most crowd-pleasing sequences I've ever seen in theaters. Of course, Rick, being the star that he is, gets to have the big finale and reap the rewards of a new Hollywood friendship all by himself. Well, also with the people who survived the real-life occurrence, which was a super big tragedy. And anyway, as I already mentioned, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood wasn't the first time Tarantino altered the course of real-life events to fit his fictional agenda. In fact, he's got a whole trilogy of alternate history films, including Django Unchained. However, the one that started it all and first shocked audiences was Inglourious Basterds, wherein, and again, spoilers guys, our nefarious band of fatherless soldiers wind up killing Hitler. Yep. Horror director Eli Roth and good friend of Tarantino Omar Doom wind up killing Hitler and Goebbels, while the film's real protagonist, Shosanna, burns the rest of the gathered SS officers alive. And, just for safety, the bastards planted bombs that then go off, killing everyone in a massive explosion. That Tarantino, he sure does know how to please an audience. What if superheroes were real and, thanks to one superhero with actual powers, the US won Vietnam? That's the question asked in Alan Moore's Watchmen comics, and in turn Zack Snyder's 2009 movie, in which Dr. Manhattan, a former physicist who, thanks to being blasted into a bajillion particles, is basically a god, winds up assisting the United States and making it a different kind of global superpower. Of course, this is just the biggest change, and results in a massive explosion in New York City that in turn creates a brief hope for world peace. Which, if you put any thought into the end of the film or the book, is definitely not going to last long. Or if you watch HBO's continuation, which shows how humanity is pretty good at looking a gift horse in the mouth and promptly sending it to the glue factory. Other changes are highlighted in Watchmen's opening credits, which include changing the famous VJ Day kiss by photographer Alfred Eisenstadt to a same-sex interaction. Also, we possibly saved Bruce Wayne's parents. I know that second one isn't really history per se, but it's a fun detail. Not so fun detail, that VJ kiss is actually pretty contentious, since not only was it random and non-consensual, but also the woman, Greta Zimmer Friedman, wasn't even a nurse, she was a dental assistant. We could probably go into a whole video essay about how the collective human experience rewrites history through iconography like this, but oh god, you're falling asleep, let's move on. Now what if the Beatles didn't exist? That's what Danny Boyle's Yesterday asks, with an additional twist: what if one person woke up remembering that they existed and made a career out of their songs? Hamish Patel stars as a failed musician named Jack who winds up getting hit by a bus during a worldwide blackout. When he wakes up, minus his beard and 2 front teeth, the world has changed in little ways, perhaps most nightmarishly with Coke being erased from history in favor of Pepsi. Honestly, Yesterday is more extreme horror than whimsical dramedy. Oh, and as I said, the Beatles don't flippin' exist, along with a bunch of other little things that really don't relate. It's actually kind of a flawed premise. Anyway, in true wish fulfillment fashion, he attempts to create a new career for himself using the Beatles' discography, and after some trouble injecting the modern zeitgeist with the defining tunes of the 20th century, makes a massive name for himself thanks to the help of Ed Sheeran. Of course, all drama is born out of conflict, and while Jack does grapple internally with making a name for himself with someone else's music, more aberrations start to appear in this alternate timeline, leading to a massive mind-melting finale. Wait, no, that's just my alternate timeline headcanon. Actually, it's just kind of a lame love story with a questionable redemption arc. Of course, when it comes to changing history, no one does it better than Forrest Gump, or at least stumbling in and out of history. See, Gump doesn't really so much change history as much as participate in it in unexpected, often hilarious ways. And not so hilarious ways. And ways where we're not even sure if they're hilarious or sad. Look, it's a conflicting movie, and that's kinda why it works, constantly vacillating between comedy and drama with a master's touch from director Robert Zemeckis. A lot of that comedy comes from the ways Tom Hanks' simple-minded Gump just kinda stumbles through historical events and figures made possible by 1994's best computer graphics. As a youngster, he meets Elvis, he takes the place of a real-life soldier who failed to speak at a hippie movement in Washington, D.C. due to a speaker malfunction, he meets John Lennon, witnesses the Watergate scandal, and tells JFK's horrifying face he has to pee.
I believe he said he had to go pee.
Where Gump changes history in simple ways, this next one is just plain simple, and perhaps all the better for it. Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, asks a question every fourth grader has asked at least once. What if the 16th president of the United States secretly hunted vampires? Yeah, that's basically it. The film actually plays with this concept in a shockingly serious manner, which winds up working really well for some, while, let's just say critics took the John Wilkes Booth role in this one. But Hammy the Vampire Slayer is surprisingly fun if you give it a chance. Sure, a lot of the actual filmmaking is super dated with questionable uses of CGI and slow motion, and the revisionism even goes so far as to dumb down the real Lincoln's feelings on slavery and politics in general and the war. But it also starts with his mother being turned into a vampire, so I'm not exactly expecting a straight adaptation of the dude's biography, you know? It's a movie about Abe Lincoln slaying vampires with the help of Jesse Custer. Indulge yourself and enjoy. Oh, so cool! Dude, that vampire just threw a horse at the president! Now, after Richard Kelly blew minds with his cult classic Donnie Darko, he used his newfound fame to, well, basically flush it all down the toilet. See, instead of tackling a big Hollywood franchise or even attempting to hit the mainstream in the least bit, he made Southland Tales, a sprawling, star-studded epic about the military-industrial complex, government overreach, neo-Marxist rebels, celebrity culture, and something called fluid karma. It's a lot. But basically, the big change is that in 2005, two towns in Texas are obliterated by nuclear attacks, in turn leading to World War III and bringing back the draft. This all plays out as a satirical take on the war on terror, as well as basically anything Kelly feels the need to poke and prod at. Along for the ride, we get Dwayne Johnson, Seann William Scott, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Justin Timberlake, and a whole slew of, that guys. Now let's drop some love toward the anime lovers in our audience and bring up one of the many alternate histories from the Land of the Rising Sun, 1999's Jin-Roh, The Wolf Brigade, which for the live-action only folks was adapted into a Korean non-animated variant in 2018. Jin-Roh is set in an alternate 1950s Japan, and well, yeah, I don't think they made those kind of suits in the 50s. Anyway, this one isn't quite as simple as LOL, what if the Beatles didn't exist, and presents a version of Japan in which instead of being occupied by Americans during WW2, it was occupied by the Germans. Jin-Roh, as well as the rest of creator Mamoru Oshie's surprisingly far-reaching Kerberos Panzer Cop franchise, takes this little change to post-war Japan as an exercise to basically create a special militarized state police force with hella cool armor, glowy red eyes, and guns that do stuff to the human body I can't show in this video. This extreme use of force acts as an allegory for the Japanese Liberal Democratic Party, which ruled over Japan from 1955 to 2009. Out of all of these, Jin-Roh is probably the one that asks for the most analysis, but it's also a super depressing political thriller, and I'm making a video for teenagers. Moving on. Hey, what if, after World War II, a group of Nazis escaped to the moon and came back in the modern day to conquer Earth? Welcome to the wild world of Iron Sky. Much like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, this low-budget sci-fi flick is born of a pretty simple question, but unlike that film's pretty serious tone that didn't necessarily jive with its concept, Iron Sky goes in the complete opposite direction, with one critic saying it, quote, feels more and more like a lost Austin Powers sequel that already feels exceedingly dated in its humor. Yikes. But yeah, that's it. That's Iron Sky. I don't really know. I don't have anything else to say about it. It's a movie where Nazis come back from the moon, and also there's a sequel, and Hitler rides a T-Rex. Finally, I feel the need to add one of the cult classics to this list, Six String Samurai. This 1998 post-apocalyptic satire asks what would have happened if the Soviet Union turned the Cold War hot in 1957 and bombarded the United States with nuclear weapons. The answer, most of the country in uninhabitable wasteland, with all of the government decimated with the exception of Las Vegas, which is ruled over by a king. The king of rock and roll, that is. Don't get too excited though, our story picks up 40 years after the apocalypse. King Elvis has died, and Las Vegas needs a new king, and our Buddy Holly-looking protagonist is en route to claim the title as the new king of rock and roll. To aid him in his quest is this annoying kid, and also he's being chased after by death. It's a really good time. And that's it, that's our video. Fun fact, Inglourious Basterds wasn't the first alternate history flick to kill off Hitler. It's the central premise of 1951's The Magic Face, in which old Adolf's valet kills him and takes his place, thereby ruining Nazi Germany's war efforts. Man, something about killing off absolute evil just really, it sticks with filmmakers, doesn't it?